Greetings, everyone. It's Antonio Garcia here at the Cozy Book Nook, and I'm here with Leah Dawkins. She's all the way from South Carolina to come visit us today and do a book signing and tell us a little bit about herself. We're so excited to meet you. How are you doing?
I am excited to be here and just thrilled that I'm an author. It's the craziest feeling. I've been a nurse for 35 years.
Yeah.
And so to sit here and say, oh, I wrote a book and my second one's coming out in November is the most bizarre experience. So,
and you guys might get stuck talking because Leslie's actually a VA nurse too. She's been a nurse for about 12 years, so they can tell us younger generation like, hey, you're doing it wrong. No, I'm just kidding.
No, not at all.
But no, so 35 years as a nurse,
and
now you're is this kind of what your main is going to be, or?
So it's a retirement plan. I understand that you do retire after you are a nurse, but I haven't ever seen it really done very successfully. It's sort of like once you're a nurse, you're always a nurse.
Right.
And but I healthcare changed dramatically after the pandemic, and really I am a public health nurse. So the pandemic for me was really the Super Bowl of my career. And when I got done with that and we had successfully made it through, I was invited actually to go on a hike, a 200-mile hike.
So
through...
a little bigger hike than I was thinking. I was about to say, he's like, for 6 to 12 miles, a 200-mile hike, just a casual.
No, so we did El Camino,
Wow.
And it was in northern Spain. And so it was basically me, my 2 girlfriends, my backpack. And we did Primitivo, so it's definitely the most primitive one. And so you have no cell phone service either.
Wow.
So it was literally just me, my backpack, and God a lot of the time. And we were hiking, and the hike was hard. I mean, it was a lot of uphill and all those kind of things. So I'm walking, and I'm like, what is it that I want to do? What are my goals? Is this what my life is going to be? And so I started thinking about that. When I was 16 years old, like what were my dreams when I was 16? Not now, but when I was a kid, and
before
I had
the world
fear.
got to you.
Well, I had no fear. It was you're fearless when you're 16 years old, and I had always wanted to write, and I was just like, I really think that's what I want to do, and so when I got home, I love this story. So when I get home and I'm like, okay, I'm getting up the guts to tell my husband I want to write a book. And so I'm praying about it. I'm journaling. I'm meditating. I'm doing all the right things that you do. And I'm like, finally, one morning, I'm just like, I'm going to just tell him I'm just going to do it. Well, of course, my husband's in the shower, and he's just soaping up and doing everything.
Good visualization there.
I am sitting here spilling my guts to this man. I'm like, this is my dream and everything. And he pops his head through. He goes, honey, are you talking to me? I'm like, I am so talking to you. This is my whole thing. So I tell him again, and he just looks at me. He's like, let her rip, potato chip. And he closes the door. And that was it. And so I was like, what's the worst thing that can happen is nobody will read the book. But if I don't write the book, nobody's read it anyway.
That's great. So, I love that.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to write?
The first one, 2.5 years. Okay. It really was a story. And people ask me where I get my plot lines and those kind of things. I've been a nurse for 35 years. And nobody believes me when I tell stories about what it is that I do. So I may as well make a fiction novel about some of my experiences and sort of combine all that together.
Yep.
And my books are plot lines are in the South. I love small town Southern. That's where I live now, and I was actually born and raised in Atlanta, but moved to and went to school at Indiana University. So let's just do that, and then ended up going south back home. And ended up in just a small town in South Carolina. And I've just loved everything about the South. I love the people. I love the culture. I love the community. I love the faith base. And it's just an eclectic group of people. And for me, that's just a lot of fun. Yeah. And so I love those plot lines. There's just a lot of guilt and shame and interconnectedness with families. A lot of love, all of those things. So I would just want to bring those to my characters. And so I hope what you feel when you read my book is just the love that I have for this United States as a whole, but just also as the Southeast.
Hometown. Yeah, I love that. So without giving no spoiler alerts, what's the story about? What's kind of the general?
So the story is based in a small town, Mississippi, and it is a suspense, a little bit of mystery, a dead body, of course, some corruption, family drama. Got to have the whole thing. It follows the story of Laura Lynn. So she is the second daughter of a prominent Mississippi family. And in 1985, when she's just 15 years old, an event happens and they send her away. And then 35 years later, they find a dead body on the family farm. So she's forced to come back and confront her past.
Wow.
And so she kind of discovers what really happened that summer of 1985. And she has to deal with small town gossip. She has reignites old friendships, makes some new friends. And just really, it's her story of redemption.
Wow. Wow, I'm sold. That sounds very interesting. Like I read a little bit of the synopsis, but I didn't know like how in depth it went. That sounds very interesting. Now, have you ever lived in Mississippi?
No, not at all. And I intentionally chose that because I have been a nurse in small town South Carolina, so I don't want anybody to think it's their neighbors. Like, I don't want anybody to think any of these characters are they're all figments of my imagination.
I always think that because when I worked since the fathers, like I never lived in like New England colonies, so I was kind of envisioning that. So I kind of like made a generic town with no real street names or anything else.
Yeah.
I always wondered how it is with some authors that don't live in the areas that they write about. Like I was just reading a Stephen King book that took place in Cincinnati, but he actually talked about some of the streets and areas that I'm familiar with and I live down there. I'm like, I just don't know how authors do it where they can like write about a different area. I struggle with that still without like having been there because sometimes the atmosphere and stuff. So I find that fascinating being able to write about that area. So I'm really curious to see just how the atmosphere is created and all that. So it's awesome.
Yeah, well, and being an indie author, I don't even know that I knew that that's what I was going to do. I went into this blind. I've been a nurse for 35 years. Like, give me a good heart attack, I'm your girl. Like, I got that. But marketing myself, figuring out how to publish a book, all of that was just literally, I read an article that this would be a great side hustle if you knew how to utilize the platforms, And so I went on there and taught myself, and that was literally, and not very well. Like my first book, when I published it, I forgot page numbers. So there's all sorts of things that as you evolve, if you do it yourself, and I did it on a dime, that you do. But I've learned to really love the indie process. Group, and really have found an online group of authors. We're all just trying to figure it all out together, and I think that's a lot of fun. And I didn't know what I didn't know, so I didn't know to be scared of anything. I think the biggest fear was really just getting that book out there. I literally did have panic attacks the week before my book published. Because it's really interesting, those people who you think are going to be your biggest support aren't necessarily. Yep. And it's more strangers that are the people really kind of encouraging you, as opposed to people who know you very well. And I think that that's very normal, but it just wasn't anything that I expected.
Let's talk about some of your events that you've done. Like, how far have you traveled?
Well, this is the furthest that
wow.
I have traveled.
Ohio for the win.
Yeah, but I've done North Carolina. So basically what I do is, because my genre is the Southeast and sort of that, I really have sort of started there, because I feel like, and my small town has come out in droves. So I'm from Sumter, and Sumter is Shaw Air Force Base is there as well. And so we're a very military and patriotic community. And so people are really great about supporting local and small business. And I'm so appreciative of them and that community, and I have felt really a part of it. And I have only been there for a few years. So wow. I lived in Charleston, and then met my husband, country boy, brought me out to Sumter. I actually have chickens and all the things. And I had really struggled a little bit to find my community. And when I decided to do this, I actually decided I was going to do a book launch. And not knowing anything, I set the date for this book launch, and I had no books. I had advertised for everything. I did this whole amazing thing, and the night comes, and I had no books. Not one book. I didn't have a book.
You did not like arrive.
I launched it anyway. Yeah, I did. I just went ahead and did it, and people bought the book without the book, and I delivered them later. But it was, and I'm so glad I made myself do that, because honestly, I think that I probably would not have published had I not just forced that on myself.
You got to cross some barriers, some Rubicons in order to get to your dream and stuff. So
yeah. So that was sort of the start, and I realized that if I could tell my story, if I had that opportunity for y'all to meet me, for people to meet me and sort of hear the journey that I've been on, people are much more likely to understand sort of the heart of the book. So a lot of the names that you'll see in the book or things are actually people that have had a huge impact on my life.
Oh, wow.
The art, the photography is actually my daughter's wedding. Beauregard, this is a standalone book, but it is a part of a series, so that's interconnected, and book 2 will be out in the fall on November 1st. But what's fun is, so the name is Beauregard, and Mrs. Beauregard was my all-time best favorite teacher growing up. She taught home ec. I know it's not something they teach anymore, but she actually was just my biggest encourager. And I thought, I'm totally going to name Beauregard. It's the perfect name. And so we had kept up with each other over the years, and I always sent Christmas cards, and she would send them back. And so, of course, I sent a invitation to my book launch to her and said, listen, I just want you to know you've had such a huge impact on me. I named the series after you.
I love it.
And not thinking anything. The woman's 100 years old. I mean, they live in Georgia. I didn't think anything about it. And the night that we had the book launch, these 2 lovely women come in, and she introduced herself as Carol Beauregard, and I go, Beauregard? That's the name of my book. Like, oh my goodness. And she goes, I'm Eileen Beauregard's daughter, and she passed away in October, and we were just not going to not come here. So she and her sister were there. Mrs. Beauregard's daughter showed up. It was the most special event, and I just loved it. And they were lovely people. And anyway, my maiden name is Stonebreaker, and
that's a cool name. That's a good.
Well, it's a remembrance one, and she had dementia, and so she was telling me that when my Christmas cards would arrive, that she would remember me because of my unique last name. She would remember who I was. And so it was just a really super special evening.
Yeah.
And so you'll see those kind of things throughout when you look at people's names. People ask, where do you get the names? I'm really just pulling out my high school yearbook. I am pulling out my mother's high school yearbook. We're just going through it. What sounds right? Who are the people who have been influential in what it is that we do? So.
I think if you get into fantasy, that's like a perfect name. I can't believe, I'm like now really curious. There's a family out there with the last name of Stonebreaker. I'm like, I must find these people. I'm like, that. That's a really unique name that you really only hear about. That's really cool, because a lot of times it's translated. Like, if you translate, it means Stonebreaker. But like,
yes, well, it is German. It was Steinbrecher, and so at some point,
still cool.
At some point down the road, I don't know. We immigrated around 1900. So
it's amazing nowadays. You can actually go back and research like where the family names kind of came from and how they evolved. Mine's Garcia, so it's like it's been around forever, and everybody's a Garcia, and it's very convoluted trying to figure out my family tree. But yeah, it's really interesting that you have that. So when there's festivals, now when you started doing that, what was it like kind of going through that process of?
So I have to give my husband credit on this one. So my husband is a salesman, down to the bone. And so my first one, the first event that I was going to, we were trying to figure out a hook line. Like, how do you bring people in to see you? Because I will tell you, people at these vending events are not always necessarily kind. So you sometimes have some folks who, and I am different now when I go to these events. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm so nice to all the vendors now. I really, even if I don't buy anything, at least stop by and talk to them, because I understand what it is to sit there and do your best to sell your product, because you are selling yourself. But it was about finding a line, and so we were trying all sorts of different things, and the best one that I can come up with is, are you a reader?
I love it.
Are
yep.
you a reader? Do you
Yep.
like to read? If so, come and hear my story. I want to tell you a little bit about my journey, and that really will bring people in. And then we found waving people down works as well. So, so we try that too.
I found that the things I kind of learned is like, if you make eye contact, I will come and start talking to you. Like, so it's like, you make eye contact, I'm already in the ready position. And step 2, going into this next vendor event, I'm going to get a higher chair. Because I realized that, especially now that I'm starting to get older, it's like I had a low chair, the lawn chairs. I'm like, I can't, hold on, I'm coming.
And it's funny you say that. So I actually stand and I wear a big hat. Those are the other
I
things
love
that
it.
I do. And I try and be as Southern as I can, you know, like I try and remember all the little things, like you're just not fully dressed without pearls, you know, those kind of things. And I do try to play up the Southern piece of it,
Yeah.
just so that people, and it is who I am, so I don't feel like I'm mocking anything. It's just trying to sort of, when people see me with my hat and my pearls, they know who I am, sort of thing.
I love that. See, that's
kind of
good, because again, it's you. It's almost like they're associating your books with you, and that's
Yes.
nice, because every time you come out with a new book and they see your image, like, oh, that's Leah.
When although the
love her
books are
book.
completely made up, I have to tell you, my heart is in every one of them. It's a very vulnerable feeling. It's extremely vulnerable, and
A lot of authors I come across tend to be kind of like a little bit of camera shy.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get them on there and stuff. It's like, whatever you feel comfortable with. If you don't want to be in there, it's fine. You take a picture of the books. But I find also, like, while they do it, when they're actually see themselves in the picture, they love it. It's like, oh my God, that's me with my books. It's like, I think they're more excited about being with their books, you know. And then I don't think they're used to the celebrityism, you know, somebody like wanting to take their picture or things like that. But thank you so much for coming out.
Yeah,
I'm going to have all of her links down below, so make sure you go check her out. I think you're still pretty active on TikTok, right?
Yeah. No, I try and do 2 or 3 a week. You have to. I still work full time, and so this is my side hustle, and I just have to balance everything out. But what's been a lot of fun is just being reinvigorated with having this new passion. I'm as passionate about this as I was when I first started nursing, and that's a beautiful thing, to be able to feel that again, that excitement and those kind of things. And no matter if you have 1 sale or if you have 5 sales, it doesn't matter. It's just equally as exciting.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
It is.
It's great because we all kind of get that feeling like, oh my God, you want me to sign this? Amazing. So book 2, when does that come out?
Yeah, so it'll be out on November the 1st. It's called
1st.
Cries the Soul.
Okay.
And so it is. It follows the story of the oldest brother. So the second daughter is the first one, and then the oldest son will be the second one. And sort of what you'll find is that the event that happened in 1985 broke up the family, and so it's the story of sort of this family finding each other again in this new place, and how does that look? And it's sort of uncomfortable, and my hope is just that you feel something, whether it's anger, whether it's disgust, whether it's love, whatever it is that you're feeling. Sort of, I hope that that is really what the books do for you, because being part of a family is tough. There's no navigating that is very difficult, and I think especially Southern families and sort of the feelings of obligation and I think that family across the lines is definitely the same thing, but I don't know, for me personally, there's a lot of guilt, a lot of shame if, certain things are not done, and it's overcoming that or coming to terms with it, either way.
And I think it's one of the benefits of being a writer too, is that there's people out there that it can relate to, and I think that's what you kind of hope as a writer, is when you put these stories out that you'll have readers that like, man, that really taught me something. That's just not only a story I enjoyed, but that really, it made them not feel alone because they've had similar situations themselves. So just amazing. I'm so glad she came out here. She's, like I said, she's all the way from South Carolina. So hopefully after her second book comes out at some point, we'll get her back up here.
Thank you. I'd love to
but I'm so glad she stopped by. Like I said, all her links are going to be down below. We're going to be here for a little bit longer to go out there and sign some copies of her books. We'll also be selling it in store, have some signed copies here and online. So be sure to check those out. And just make sure that you just follow her, you check out her future work, you support her, because when you self-publish, you're literally your own cheerleader, marketer, CEO, and it's great that you have a very supportive husband. That's always beneficial to have someone on your team that's going to be supportive too. But you can never have enough support. You can always need that. It takes a village not only to raise children but also support a small business. So be sure to take some time and check out all our different work. So Leah, thank you so much again for stopping by. We're going to go out and talk to some of the visitors today and get some books signed, and then we'll see you guys in the next episode. You guys have a great day.